Go with the money that is tayyib. This is what Imam alayhi salam said. Go with the wealth which is tayyib. That means if you owe money, pay up first, then go. Or if the part which should be given to Allah, that is khumus, pay that first and then go. And if nothing remains after payments, then don't go, because it does not become wajib. It becomes only wajib if you can still spare some money after paying up the dues. And there are many conditions. It's not a tourist program to go to Hajj and say, I'm going to just as a tourist. There is not a tourist program. It has got a meaning. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. And the moment I said Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, 25 things, one after the other, become haram upon us. Have we ever pondered at what are these things? So simple things like do not look at a mirror. That means do not regard yourself in a mirror. Do not apply perfume. But do not run away from bad odor. That means if there is a bad odor coming, do not block your nose and run away. Right? Do not go under the shade while you are traveling. Do not wear shoes which cover. It can be open sandal. Do not wear your hand gloves or socks. Do not quarrel. Do not pluck the grass. Do not kill an insect. If you look at it, and then there are many things that all intimacies between husband and wife stopped. Even witnessing a nikah, not reading, witnessing a nikah while you are in ihram is not allowed. Leave aside reading nikah. All this gives me an idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put me into a stage whereby I am made to believe that all that carnal desire of my flesh, my body, all that, my reaction and responses, are coming to a standstill for some time. With these two cloths, I am just like the one who will be, inshallah, raised on the day of judgment. Quran says, وَيَقُولُونَ مَتَى هَذَا الْوَعْدُ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ مَا يَنظُرُونَ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً فَإِذَا هُمْ جَمِيعٌ لَدَيْنَا مُحْضَرُونَ الْيَوْمَ لَا تُظْلَمُ نَفْسٌ شَيْئًا وَلَا تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كُنتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. These people are asking you, O Prophet, when will be the day when we shall be called by Allah? When is that day? Tell them, they are just waiting for one moment when there will be a loud bang and cry, and they will all come before us. None of them will be wronged. Everyone will be paid according to his deeds. On that day, some of us will rise with two clothes, that is kafan, if at all that kafan is still intact. And I don't know what will happen to others. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows better. But the view on the plain of Arafah or around Khane Kaaba gives us an idea as to this is the type of metamorphosis and transition taking place when I will discard or remove, or when I get divested of that particular vestment or ihram, then I go and resume my ordinary clothes. If I become the same devil again I was before. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that man's worst enemy is pride and arrogance. When a person starts arrogating to himself a position for which he might not be even qualified, or when he tries to think that he is very important, or he forms a habit of congratulating oneself, at that particular moment, in his own estimation, he finds himself very high. That is gradually becoming an enemy to oneself. Naturally, nobody likes to become one's own enemy, because everyone likes oneself most, values oneself best and highest. For that reason, it is really strange that one should ever elect to be one's own enemy. So somebody asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that how does one become an enemy of oneself? By becoming proud, by being arrogant. And the answer which he gave was so pertinent and so apt, and nobody can, from his own experience, deny it, that one can definitely progress in any field one has chosen, as long as one has a feeling that there is so much yet to be achieved. As long as one feels that he has got a lot of stages to pass before he comes to his goal, as long as he has not satisfied himself, he has a feeling of inadequacy and he thinks that he hasn't reached the pinnacle. The moment he feels that he has reached perfection and there is no need or there is no rung in this ladder left over, he has reached the summit, at that particular moment the progress stops, and stopping one's own progress is becoming one's own enemy. Because while you can still go on and on towards perfection, you are trying to strangle your progress just before you have reached the final stage of perfection. You become your own enemy. But worse than arrogance, worse than pride, worse than showmanship and display, there's another thing for which Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wasalam alayhi said that worse than that is ujub. Ujub means to like oneself, to be happy with oneself, to congratulate oneself. And in that there is a trick which people play by outwardly, ostensibly displaying humility. They try to prove that they are very humble, but within their own conscience, they like themselves, they congratulate themselves, they are in love with themselves, and for that reason they believe there is none like them. Outwardly they are very humble. They meet with you displaying all that humility, but in himself there is a feeling which in Persian is said, Ham chu man digari neest. There is none like me on earth. That feeling where one begins to congratulate oneself, falls in love with oneself, and is proud but ostensibly does not admit it, that is a very dangerous step in our development. And tonight, since we are going to congratulate two families, or rather 4 families, for the marriage that is being performed, and may Allah give us the occasion of attending many more such marriages, because I firmly believe that marriages at this age solve a number of social problems in a community. But before I proceed to congratulate them, this has got to be understood that the day one tries to be arrogant or tries to have ujub, that means what we say khud pasandi, then the problem begins at home. When the husband feels that whatever he has said for once must be taken as a final command by everyone in the house. There could be anything which would make it impossible to carry out that command, but he is not prepared to understand it, and he is not even prepared to forgive. It was my order, why didn't you do? The day husband tries to dominate in his own family the way I have described, that is the beginning of a long road to tragedy. One has to understand that there can be no final order in any sphere because there are so many circumstantial things attendant upon every incident. One can never forecast, one can never predict. Husband goes from the house and says, look, tonight I must have pudding, right? And the wife goes to the shop to find out some eggs. If I know the ingredients, I do not know, but I just guess there must be some eggs in pudding. The taste of pudding is in the eating, as they say. Well, and some milk and all that. She went and purchased. But when she came home and she started preparing pudding, something happened. Something went wrong. And the pudding finally could not be ready. And the husband Maharaj came home. Where is the pudding? And the wife tries to explain. This is how it happened. No. How could it happen? And then, of course, one after another incident occurs. The psychological factor working behind such petty quarrels is that the husband is not prepared to understand that he is not all in all on this earth. That he is so self-conceited that he cannot conceive any situation where his order is not carried out. Well, that is an illness. And it has got to be avoided. There has got to be some reasonable attitude in life where we will understand the point of view of the other. Maybe there is some reason in what he says, and what I said could not be complied with. If this does not exist in a family, it can create a lot of problems. And even in a society where leadership is one of the principal factors, one has got to, what they say, give and take. But once obsessed with conceit, with arrogance, then we have all sorts of problems. So the Prophet said this, and he himself gave a reason, and in his own life he gave examples. There are several examples. For example, going for an outing together with his own companions. When the companions requested him that let us go today just for an outing, a picnic, whatever you call it. And the Prophet said, where shall we go? He said, we shall go out in the desert, pitch a tent, slaughter an animal, have our own dinner outside. And the Prophet said, well, we will go. And the companions went. When they reached there, they pitched up a tent, and the Prophet was sitting in the tent, and he saw that somebody was busy slaughtering the animal. After the animal was slaughtered, somebody was skinning it, and somebody was trying to cut meat into pieces, and he rose. He came out of the tent and went towards the desert. And someone said, Ya Rasulullah, where are you going? He said, I'm going to collect some wood so that you can have fire, and then you'll be able to cook. And the companion said, Ya Rasulullah, we take pride in serving you. You please sit down where you are. We will go and collect the fuel, the wood. We take pride that we are in service to you. So allow us to serve you and do not come out in this hot sun. And the Prophet said, Allah hates him who tries to enjoy a privilege over people because of his position. One has to share the labor. One has to work together so that in as far as living is concerned, we are seen equal to each other. And the Prophet went and brought some wood and he shared. That is one. Imam Jaffer Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayh. When the Qafila of Hujjaj, Hajis came to see him in Medina, after Hajj was over, one fellow said, Yabna Rasulillah, we were very fortunate. We had an alim, a learned man with us. And he was also very pious. So Imam alayhi salam said, what was he doing all the time when he was pious? He said, he's always sitting on the musalla. Wherever we went, if we were in Makkah, Makkah, if we were in Muna, if we were in Arafat, if we were in Muzdalifah, wherever we went, he was always praying, always praying. He was such a pious man. And Imam alayhi salam said, who looked after his belongings and his camel? I mean, in those days, it was just like saying, who looked after his car? So they said, Ya Ibn Rasulillah, there is no such question at all. It's not relevant. We were all in his service. His camel was looked after by us. We provided the meals. We looked after him. We never allowed him to work. Imam alayhi salam said, then your Hajj was 1,000 times better than his. Mal'oonun, mal'oonun, man wada'a kallahu ala nas. Cursed be he who keeps his own burden upon the shoulders of people. Because this is where people try to believe, some, that we have a right to enjoy that superiority over others, while there is no such thing. We have got to understand that any act which gives arrogance or which gives an impetus to arrogance has been discouraged. When the Prophet said, when you say Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullah, you get 90% of thawab, of reward. Greetings, peace be upon you. And when you answer, which is wajib, wa alayka as-salam wa alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah, 10% of thawab is given to you. 90% goes to him who initiates the greeting. 10% goes to him